Hi, everyone. Welcome to the show. Meghan Markle cold-calling Republican senators to lobby for Democratic policy initiatives, and she got the numbers from another Democratic U.S. senator. That's coming up. But first, one of the big takeaways from this week's elections isn't just about Republican successes and Democrats' failures, but that political polling in this country is broken. And I'm not sure what, if anything, can be done to fix it. Just look at Tuesday's New Jersey governor's election. The final Real Clear Politics average before Election Day had Democratic Governor Phil Murphy cruising to victory with a nearly 8-point margin. The final Monmouth University poll of that race gave Murphy a double-digit lead over the Republican, Jack Ciattarelli. But on Election Day, Murphy barely eked out a win. The race was so close on Election Day, it wasn't even called until yesterday. Murphy eking out a win by less than 2 points. And yes, polling in Virginia's governor race was generally correct. Glenn Youngkin gaining momentum on Terry McAuliffe in the last week of the campaign. But the final Real Clear Politics there showed him about in the same amount of victory that he actually ended up winning by. Now, Youngkin ended up winning by about 2.5 points. But the New Jersey results are part of a larger trend. Now, Monday, we had on the show Patrick Murray, who is director of the Polling Institute at Monmouth. And he claims it's the media's fault, not the pollsters.
I think the problem that we've run into is that the media in particular tend to think of these polls as crystal balls. And polls do best when they explain what the here and now is, not when they try to venture into a prediction of what the future might hold.
But as I said to him, that kind of feels like a cop-out. Most polls prior to last year's presidential election overstated Joe Biden's lead over Donald Trump. Some incorrectly indicated that Biden would likely win in some states where he lost, or that the race would be close for Biden when it wasn't. In fact, earlier this year, the American Association for Public Opinion Research published a report that showed the 2020 election had the worst polling errors in nearly 40 years for the national vote, and in at least 20 years at the state level. In 2016, pre-election polls fueled high-profile predictions that Hillary Clinton's chances of winning the presidency were 90%. So how did things get so bad? Well, according to that same Public Opinion Association, the 2016 polls, they say, failed to account for real changes in voter preference during the final week of the campaign. Well, okay. They also say that most polls didn't adjust for an overrepresented population of college graduates. Okay. Additionally, they said that many 2016 Trump voters simply lied to pollsters about who they were going to vote for. And the group says, quote, it appears to be impossible to determine what went wrong with polling in 2020. Really? Look, I love polls. Maybe it's the part of me that loves predictions and statistics and trends. I used to be obsessed with baseball cards and player stats. But I'm starting to think that pollsters just can't seem to get a hold on, or maybe a hold of, Trump voters. And there doesn't seem to be a solution in sight. So are polls really broken? Or is this just a recent trend of bad polling, just an anomaly? Joining me now to dig into this is Pollster Carly Cooperman, CEO of Schoen Cooperman Research. Her new book out this week is called America, Unite or Die. Thanks very much for coming on the show. Appreciate it. All right, so let's start with that big picture question. I mean, I have lost faith in polling. I love polling. I don't want to lose faith in polling. Is there anything to indicate that there is hope for the future?
Yeah, I think a few things are happening here. We are seeing that it is very challenging to predict turnout. What happened in New Jersey is that far more Republicans ended up showing up and voting, Republicans that wouldn't necessarily vote in an off-year election. They're much more motivated than Democrats this year. And at the same time, Democrats were disenfranchised in a way where they were less motivated to come out to the polls. And that's a trend that we saw in Virginia as well. However, the polls were picking up on that more so than what happened in New Jersey.
But I guess my question is, why are pollsters surprised by that, right? I mean, you're saying, well, we didn't predict that there would be the kind of turnout among Republicans, and yet it seems that we're seeing that problem 2016, 2020, and now again in 2021. It seems to be the same issue again and again.
So I don't think that we're surprised. I think that we know that this is happening. I mean, we saw in polls leading up to the election time and time again that there was more enthusiasm on the Republican side than the Democratic side. I think that it is still very difficult to measure to the extent that the turnout changes are going to happen year-to-year basis. I mean, we study how turnout has happened in the past. We ask additional questions, and especially after the 2020 election, when the polls really did miss. We now ask attitudinal questions and psychographic questions, questions to get at sentiments more than beyond if they're going to vote, to try to measure these changes in trends. But at the end of the day, it is still very challenging to really predict ultimately what turnout looks like on election day.
Now, I'm going to ask you this question. Keep in mind, I'm someone who wants these polls to work, but I'm losing faith, all right? So your firm actually did a poll in Jersey where you also found that Murphy had a 9-point lead or so in October. So once you now see what happened, what do you guys do now to go back and say, all right, what can we do to make sure generally this stuff doesn't happen again?
So that poll was done early to mid-October, and at the same time we did polling in Virginia. And in both cases, what we do is not only are we looking at what we had, which was that 9-point lead, as you said, but we also are running different scenarios where we're looking at the vote among just those absolutely certain to vote, among just those who say they vote in all gubernatorial elections. And we overlay it. And what we saw in both cases is that the more narrow the sample got, the more you looked at those most intense about voting, the narrower the gaps became. And so we saw that these trends were happening, and we've made a big point since 2020 to be incorporating and looking at several different turnout scenarios when we look at these races. That takes place with everything that we do now. We look at different scenarios to try to gauge, the range of turnout scenarios that can happen.
So, look, I have more faith in polls, I think, than a lot of people do, right? I'm telling you honestly that I'm losing my faith in polls, but I still have some faith in them. There are a lot of people out there who have now no faith in them at all. What do you say to those people who are saying, I've lost all faith, and you're a pollster, and you want to say, in 2022 and in 2024, here's why you can trust them, or can't you say that?
I think that everybody in our field, in my profession, is trying to continue to add questions to our surveys to make us able to pick up on trends that you don't necessarily get just from asking a simple horse race question. And I think we are continuing to get closer in terms of understanding the movement that's possible. And I believe that everyone in our field is trying to do a better job at letting people know, hey, we're not saying this is exactly what's going to happen. We're looking at shifts.
I know, but that's a cop-out. That's sort of like people need to understand what these polls are and aren't. I got that. But that just feels like a cop-out. They're sort of like, well, people need to better understand that we don't have crystal balls. I mean, I get it. But it does seem, for example, like, the Trafalgar Group, which is this right-leaning poll group, which is despised by everyone on the left, has been sort of getting it right more of the time because they seem to be more tapped into, for whatever reason, the Trump and Republican voters than a lot of other pollsters.
Right. Well, I mean, that goes against your point that you can't believe polls if some people are getting it right. But I mean, it is true. In addition to having it be a challenge to predict turnout, the other issue is that Trump voters, there are a swath of Republican voters that are not answering phone calls. They are not taking surveys online. Right. They do not believe in systems and institutions, and they don't want to give their opinion. And it's something that as pollsters, we're well aware of. We're trying lots of different ways to get to these people. But we're very well aware that this is something that is a challenge that's going to continue to be ongoing. Yeah.
All right, Carly Cooperman, I want to believe. I want polls to work, but I'm losing faith. So we'll see. We'll see how it goes in 2022. Thank you very much for sharing your expertise. Really appreciate it.
Thanks so much for having me.
Coming up, new information out today about the deadly shooting on the set of the Alec Baldwin film Rust as the finger-pointing accelerates. The big question now, who had access to that weapon that the armorer insists had no live rounds in it? There is a big discrepancy on the timing. And the Duchess of Sussex, Meghan Markle, gets the private phone numbers of U.S. Republican senators to advocate for Democratic policy initiatives. How did she get them? And does she really think it's going to do any good? Coming up. Just back to the key question. The supposed insertion of live rounds. Now in a 5 to 10 minute period? Joining us to talk about it again is Jennifer Burrell. She's the president-elect of the New Mexico Criminal Defense Lawyers Association. Jennifer, thanks so much for coming back on the show. Appreciate it. All right, look, you know New Mexico law better than do I. Do you agree with me that if we take this seriously, this allegation that someone intentionally puts live rounds into a dummy box, that we're now talking about the possibility, just possibility, of a murder charge?
Absolutely. But, again, we have to have facts to come to that kind of decision. And there's no facts yet that support that. It's pure speculation at this point.
Well, but they seem to be saying, right? I mean, it's not speculation on their part, right? They're claiming our client knows for a fact that there were no live rounds. She checked it. She spun it. She looked at it. She knew there was no live rounds. And there was now, it seems, a narrowed 5 to 10 minute period where the table is unattended. And, if their facts are backed up, you're talking about someone intentionally putting a live round in there.
Yeah, and the question that they're going to have to answer is who? Who would do that? And they have to be able to come up with that. Right now, it's just a theory. But absolutely, if this was an intentional, planned act, it would be a murder charge.
Right. And I think that's a very important point to think about here. What do you make about the discrepancy, though, that they had initially on Wednesday said 11 to 1, that it was unaccounted for, and now they're saying 5 to 10 minutes. That seems to me to be an intentional change in the account. Why do you think they're doing that?
Well, you would think that there would be some witness statement that would be able to narrow it down, but we haven't heard how they came to that decision, how they came from an hour all the way down to 10 minutes. So hopefully we'll be able to start getting the witness statements. We know that Hannah spoke to the New York Times several times at the beginning of this before she hired Bob Gordon and Jason Bowles. But now you notice that her attorneys are talking for her, and they may be trying to clarify the story some. But we don't really know what her full statement is. That has not been released. I do know that she has given a statement to law enforcement, but we have not seen the contents of that statement.
I mean, I assume her lawyers are talking to law enforcement, right? I mean, law enforcement's got to be reaching out to them, and they have got to be saying the same thing that they're saying publicly to law enforcement, right?
Oh, I'm sure. Yeah, absolutely. And, defense attorneys do their own investigation. So I'm sure they're reaching out to law enforcement to see what information they can gather from them as well. There's a lot of investigations going on. We know that the studio hired their own investigators. We've got Bob Gordon and Jason Bowles doing theirs. And I believe Lisa Tracco is also representing the assistant director. And so that's one of the issues about this taking so long. We're multiple weeks now, and we don't know who's been on that crime scene. So any evidence collected now could be contaminated, which means that it could not be allowed at the jury trial.
Now, the DA involved here. Do you expect that she's going to take her time some more?
Well, I think with a lot of the missteps in the investigation that we talked about today and the last time that I was here, that there's going to be some problems with trying to prove this. What we know now from the press conference that was held last week was that basically all they have in evidence are bullets, right? And we don't have any kind of analysis back. We don't have any other evidence to rely on at this point. And so that's a real problem in the investigation. The physical investigation has taken this long because now we're really concerned about contaminated evidence.
Jennifer Burrell, thank you. We look forward to having you back.
Good to be here.
NewsNation Prime is running a full hour on this story tonight at 9, 8 Central. Still to come tonight, opening statements set to begin in the trial of 3 men accused of shooting and killing Ahmaud Arbery. The video is devastating, but the defense says the law allowed the men to do exactly what they did. That's coming up. Tomorrow morning, opening statements are expected to begin in the trial of the 3 men accused of confronting and shooting to death 25-year-old Ahmaud Arbery in February of 2020. Jury selection just wrapped up, and we'll discuss one big issue there in a moment. But first, let's talk about the defense. The video will be the key to this case. You see Travis McMichael and his father, Gregory McMichael, trying to stop and eventually killing Arbery while he's jogging. Family friend William Bryan is behind filming it all. All 3 are now charged with 9 counts, including felony murder. The 3 men also face federal hate crime charges in a separate trial expected to begin in February. Now, this is not an easy case for the defense. It rests on a 2-pronged approach, a reliance on Georgia's since amended citizens arrest law and arguing that they were acting in self-defense. The 1863 law was a real law that was on the books and was incredibly broad and outdated, allowing any Georgia citizen to arrest another if they had reasonable suspicion a crime was committed in their presence or within their immediate knowledge. The law as it existed has now been repealed because of this case, but it was in effect when the incident occurred. The McMichaels have said they thought Arbery matched the description of a man responsible for a series of burglaries in the neighborhood and that they were trying to detain him. Also seems Arbery had walked onto a home construction site moments earlier, taking nothing. The defense will also likely argue that Arbery was the aggressor when the actual shots were fired. And it's hard to believe, but the reason the tape was released and charges were eventually filed is that a lawyer for one of the defendants thought it actually helped them. Joining us now is former U.S. Attorney for the Middle District of Georgia, Michael J. Moore. He's now a partner at Moore Hall. Thank you for joining us. Really appreciate it.
Glad to be with you, Dan.
Let me ask you, if you are the defense in this case, the prosecution's kind of easy, right? You put up the video and you say the video speaks for itself and you make arguments, etc. If you are the defense, how hard is it for you to convince jurors, argue to jurors that your clients were abiding by a now totally outdated law?
You know, I know some of the defense lawyers in this case personally, and that they're good lawyers and good people, friends of mine. So they won't have any problem representing their clients. They do that all the time, and I expect that you'll see a vigorous defense on their part. The problem is the 1863 law was basically a slave chasing law, and it was put in place to allow posses to hunt down people who consider them to be escaped slaves. And so the law requires that the old law requires that you actually see or have immediate knowledge of some criminal activity. The problem in this case, I think, will be there's an initial officer report, and I reviewed this case early on when it first happened, but there's an initial officer's report where Mr. McMichael, the elder McMichael, says he didn't see anything. And he just sees this guy, and I think his words were he was hauling, his behind down the road. And so at that point, then he goes and he gets his son, and they load up in the pickup truck, and one's got a .357 and one's got a shotgun, and they begin to chase Ahmaud. And so it's gonna be difficult to talk about the idea that you had some suspicion that there had actually been a crime occurring, or that you were witness to it, or that it happened in your immediate presence, when you've told a police officer on the scene that you didn't see that. And that's going to be, and it may at the end of the day be the words of the defendant at the time that this happened that causes that to be a futile defense.
Now, before I ask you about the jury question, there is a separate defense for the guy who's filming it. I think he's got a very different case than the father and son, right? Well,
he has a different case in the sense that he didn't have the shotgun, and he didn't have the .357, and he, didn't pull the trigger. To me, though, Georgia has a party to the crime statute, and it allows for people who participate in, who aid, abet, encourage, solicit others to do an offense to also be found culpable of the offense. And so here you've got a guy who gets in his truck and he's filming, and essentially it's like, I had horses at a farm, and it reminds me of when you're chasing cows. They essentially herded this young man down the road for no reason other than the fact that they see him jogging in their neighborhood. And so the fact that Mr. Bryan was involved in that process and sort of chasing him down, and I think at some point you may find that there's some physical evidence actually on his vehicle, that's a problem for him. And so, did he participate in it? Did he participate in sort of the hunt? Let me put it this way: if you have somebody who's cheering on the lynching, you're still involved in the lynching.
Yep. Yesterday, some very upset after the jury ended up having just one black juror, 11 white jurors. Now, a jury doesn't have to match percentage-wise the makeup of the county, but the judge did say that he believed that there was likely intentional discrimination, but that he wasn't going to act here. What do you make of that?
It's a little striking to see that you've got such a true minority of minority representation on this jury. To have one African-American juror in a county where you have, I think, at least 26% or so of the citizenry is African-American, I think is troubling. The law says that the government can challenge the jury selection and that the defense then has to make several showings, and the court goes through a process, an analytical process, and certainly I've read that. I know the lawyers involved in the case. I don't think that they have racist tendencies in their being. I think they're representing their client. The problem is that when you strike all the jurors that of the race of the victim in the case, you begin to wonder, what's afoot. You can give reasons, you can give race neutral reasons, but you can do that just about anything. And if anybody believes that race is not going to play a lead part in this case, I mean, that's a lot like saying that, a Christmas tree or Santa Claus is not going to play a part in Christmas. It's just going to be the overarching theme as we move through this case, and that's what makes the jury composition so.
But I think it's worth pointing out that a lot of the reason that there were also a more limited number of black jurors in the jury pool was that a lot of them were honest during jury selection, and they said, I couldn't be fair, right? I mean, when they're asked the question, could you be fair and objective, a lot of them said, no, I can't. I saw the video, and I can't be objective when it comes to what happened here. So that also further narrowed it down, slightly separate issue from the question of the ones who actually were eligible and who the defense then struck. Michael J. Moore,
absolutely.
Thank you so much for coming on the show. Really appreciate it.
Glad to be with you. Thank you.
Coming up, standoff in the streets after officers corner a suspect who led them on a high-speed chase, and he has got a gun. It is coming up next. Time for our police cam segment showing the dangers that police officers face every day across the country. This is a chase through alleys and residential neighborhoods in Milwaukee as officers tried to pull over a suspect in a Chevy Monte Carlo. Earl Lawhorn was reckless driving. He was able to get away from one police car, but officers in a second spotted him and continued the chase as Lawhorn hit 70 miles an hour on narrow roads.
He's gonna be north, wrong way on a one-way crash. 4-1. He's got a pistol in his hand. He's got a gun in his hand. Westbound through the alley. Westbound through the alley. Drop the gun!
Now, Lawhorn ran off, and police continued the chase on foot. When an officer caught up to him, Lawhorn shot at him from a yard, then ran to a sidewalk.
Drop the gun! Drop it! 81, I got him on 4-2. Drop the gun! Drop it! 81. He's armed with a gun! Drop it! Drop the gun! Put the gun down! 81, he's still armed with a handgun.
Now, police found the pistol in the street. He was taken to the hospital where he died. No one else was injured. Joining me now is Sean Stix-Larkin, retired Tulsa police lieutenant, my former Live PD co-host. Sean, great to see you. So the suspect eludes the initial officers, only to be chased a short time later by additional officers. Suspect crashes and bails, seen with a gun in hand. What strikes you most about what we just saw?
Honestly, what sticks out to me is The suspect basically got away from the first officers, as you mentioned. Oftentimes during these car chases or even foot chases, suspects, they want to separate themselves from the firearm as quickly as possible. They got away from the officers, had an opportunity to get rid of the gun, get involved in a second vehicle pursuit, bails out the car, still has the gun in his hand. And, you know, I've listened to all the audio of the pursuits here. And during the first pursuit, one of the officer actually says once they lose him, he's known to carry a gun. So they had some intel on this guy. So the second group of officers, when they see him crash and bail, he's still possessing a firearm. He had plenty of times to get rid of it. He's holding on to it for a reason.
The suspect points his gun at the officer. The officer then shot at the suspect. And he still flees while holding the gun, again points it at other officers. Let's listen to that.
Drop the gun! Drop it! 81. He's armed with a gun! Drop it! Drop the gun! 81. He's still armed with a handgun.
All right, it's a little hard to see there. What are we looking at here with the suspect's weapon?
You know, there is a still shot of the suspect's gun, actually, where it ends up down on the ground. It looks like probably like a crime scene photo or something like that. First of all, the type of gun he's using is it's a pour gun. It's something commonly we find on gangsters out on the streets. But the cartridge casing is actually locked in the slide or in the ejection port, and that's what's known as a stovepipe. So the suspect obviously fired at officers. He tried to continue to fire at officers, but his gun was jammed. So that's the only reason that the suspect, when he keeps pointing his firearm back at the officers, he's trying to shoot at the cops, but his gun has malfunctioned.
Real quick, we saw a family walking down the sidewalk as police run after the gunman as well.
Yeah, this is at the end of August. You know, they're in Milwaukee, a highly populated city. It's about 7 p.m. at night. There's a lot of vehicular people out on the road. You mentioned the family that's out walking. You know, it's a dangerous situation for the officers as well as the residents that are living in this area, all created by this suspect who, again, as I mentioned, had plenty of opportunities to get rid of that firearm, and he chose not to.
All right, Sean Larkin. Good to see you. Thank you for wearing a long-sleeve shirt today. Really appreciate the effort that went into today's appearance.
It's still underneath the shirt, though, buddy.
Coming up, Meghan Markle cold-calling Republican senators, including Susan Collins, trying to persuade them to get behind Democratic policy initiatives. This is not an SNL skit. She actually got the private numbers from a Democrat in the Senate. That's next. Welcome back. The issues at the center of the multi-trillion-dollar reconciliation bill have been hotly contested for months. Massive gridlock on Capitol Hill. Good news. A new envoy has arrived to end this brutal impasse. Meghan Markle. Yes, our long national nightmare is over. Meghan Markle is here, and she's got a plan to bring legislators together for a cause that she's championing: paid family leave. Now, according to Politico, the Duchess of Sussex has actually been cold calling senators to lobby for paid family leave to remain in the bill. West Virginia Senator Shelley Moore Capito received one of these cold calls. Capito told Politico that she picked up the phone expecting Joe Manchin, her fellow West Virginia senator. As the number came up blocked, instead the voice she heard on the other end casually said, "This is Meghan, the Duchess of Sussex." How did she even get access to these private numbers? Apparently, New York Senator Kirsten Gillibrand made the hookup. Gillibrand told the Politico that more cold calls from the Duchess are coming. Well, if they're anything like the ones she's made so far, the Duchess might want to save her minutes. Maine Senator Susan Collins told Politico that Markle's comments didn't have much of an impact. Quote, "I was happy to talk to her, but I'm more interested in what the people of Maine are telling me." Not surprising. In what world, though, could she imagine that Susan Collins saying, you know, I wasn't in favor of paid family leave before, but when the Duchess of Sussex calls, well, I'm in. Let's light this rocket. The only thing these phone calls could possibly do is firm up resistance and outrage. Meghan Markle put this one on a silver platter. Look, politics is always in part about optics, and the optics here are terrible. Why is Senator Gillibrand giving out these numbers? If senators or presidents want to meet with famous people with causes, I think that's fine. Happens a lot. But it seems to me that this is different and a real issue when a senator is giving out private numbers of other senators for advocacy cold calls. And by the way, isn't Meghan Markle supposed to be apolitical? The royals, according to the Queen's official website, must remain strictly neutral with respect to political titles. The Duchess stepped back as a senior member of the royal family in early 2020, but retained her title, and she's using it. Collins called it kind of ironic that Markle referred to herself as Duchess. I mean, does she think this is going to help? Or is she maybe just doing this to make herself feel good? This has nothing to do with the policy issues, by the way. On paid family leave, I'm not talking about whether it's a good or bad idea right now. Here to discuss is Hilary Fordwich. She's a longtime observer of the British royals, an expert on the monarchy. Thanks so much for coming on the show. Appreciate it. All right, so take us into the mind, if you will, of Meghan Markle. What is she thinking as she is gathering these phone numbers and making these calls?
Well, to ask me to go into the mind of a renegade royal is rather a bridge too far, I'm afraid. And actually, when you gave your rather neat earlier impersonation of her, I don't think she has an English accent. She's profoundly American, so she doesn't speak with an English accent, of course.
That is true. I am I am so busted. You are so right. Of course she doesn't have an English accent. All right, so.
Correct. I think very seriously, what's very serious about this is, an overriding, let's look at an issue right now in terms of the Queen being 95. She's gone through a ghastly year. She's had all these issues with Prince Andrew. She's had her grandson, basically bully her on an international network with Oprah. And they've given out so many different lies, and they've made up so many sort of falsehoods, to say the very, very least. And now Prince Harry can't obviously control his wife, because he knows very well that you can't be a renegade royal over here in the United States, because you're breaking, yes, the point that you made earlier, Dan, you're breaking centuries of the royals staying out of politics, staying obviously not in American politics, let alone they shouldn't be in politics. And what happened at the COP26, that's a whole different issue here. But I would say very seriously, purportedly, Prince Harry was in a panic mode when he heard about his grandmother being hospitalized. But what does he think this is going to do exactly to her health? And then on the American side of things, we didn't elect Meghan Markle. She's not elected. So now to hear, and actually a point that you didn't mention, was that you're right that Senator Kirsten Gillibrand, she gave out the number, the Democratic senator from New York, but also she has said there are going to be more phone calls than just that one to Senator Collins of Maine, and also Senator Caputo from West Virginia. There are going to be more phone calls. She said, I gave out the more numbers to different senators. There will be more phone calls. She added that Meghan Markle is going to be in a group of people working on how long this paid family leave should be. We didn't elect her. Who has wanted her to be in that position? That's an issue for Americans to decide.
Well, but I guess what I'm trying to understand, in addition to how to say ghastly, what I'm trying to understand is, did she talk to anyone about this? Did someone advise her? Do you think that there were American senators who encouraged her to do this?
I bet, Dan, it was her PR firm. Don't forget, they have 3 PR firms on retainer. And actually, if you think about what's successful or not, we're talking about it tonight. And it's been as, clip, it's been on Fox, it's been on numerous different networks. Her PR firm couldn't care less what happens to the royal family. And actually, many have obviously sort of projected that actually what she'd rather see is the royal family being undermined. And she actually is doing that. So perhaps she's successful in what she set out to do.
Well, maybe, but except that, paid family leave is generally popular with the American public, but it's tied to a bunch of other issues here, and political issues and dollars, et cetera. And it just seems to me that in the end, that what this has done is, I think it's backfired a bit, meaning that I don't think anyone was going to change their mind, right? It's not as if, as I mentioned, anyone's going to say, oh, I got a call, I'm changing my mind. And so I think that in the end, what you've done, though, is had some negative media attention surrounding it. Because, look, my first reaction was not even to think about the policy issue, and was to think about the protocol and think about what was happening. What was she saying? And that's not positive. It just doesn't seem
It's
to me
not
that
positive.
she's moving the ball forward in her cause.
Right. And also the letter that she sent about a month ago to Nancy Pelosi and Chuck Schumer, that letter was on the Duchess of Sussex letterhead. So that's formal letterhead, which again is breaking royal protocol. And also, Dan, think about this. They supposedly, again, another lie, but they left the UK. There was this Mexit move, obviously, as we all know. And that was to avoid all the publicity. That was to avoid being in the spotlight. That was for a quieter life. This isn't a quieter life, smiling and dialing senators.
Did you just make that up, or did you have that ready to go, smiling and dialing?
It's true, right? It's like she was smiling and dialing,
You're good.
calling.
You're good. No, it was a great line. And I was like, wow, did she just come up with that?
That's what she was doing.
It's a great line.
And she's going to be doing more of it.
Thank you. Thank you so much for coming on the show. Really appreciate it.
Pleasure, Dan.
Coming up, usually it's Jen Psaki versus Fox News, but then President Biden just took questions, and it was a doozy. It seems a Fox question got the administration to actually change immigration policy. That's up next. Thank you for watching. Click the red subscribe button below so you can get more of NewsNation's fact-driven, unbiased coverage.